Your Creative Push, episode 142.
You have to have courage to understand that starting over, it's probably best. Just try once and you will probably see that it's going to work.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Mike Azevedo. Mike is a freelance concept artist and illustrator from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He's worked on projects such as League of Legends, Hex, Legends of the Cryptids, and worked for clients such as Bluzzard, Guerrilla Games, Games Workshop, and Direwolf. And Mike, first of all, thank you, man, so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. And sorry for taking so long.
Oh, no worries, man. Glad to get you on. I was wondering, I guess we could start out by talking about kind of like the difference between like kind of commissioned work, you know, like work, and your passion projects and kind of personal projects, and kind of how do you balance the two?
Most of my passion projects is like the way I used to, I don't know, just relax because I have to work a lot for those clients that you mentioned. And it's my way to just have my creative juices flowing, right? Because a lot of client work is like pretty straightforward. They want a specific product and I have no space to experiment. So I do that part a lot when I'm doing my own work, and when I'm at the end of the day, when I have like a few hours, I'll just try and do something so I can get my creative juices out, right?
Yeah. And one of the ways that you do that is through your YouTube channel, which I kind of find myself kind of getting lost watching your time-lapse videos. And I dude, you got to make more of those, because it's like, for kind of I write. And so for a non-artist like me, like kind of watching those time-lapse videos is almost more enjoyable than kind of seeing the finished piece of work. And also like, and in hearing your explanation of the processes, I think, probably incredibly useful to a lot of the people listening. So yeah, could you talk a little bit about that then, like kind of why you create them?
I used to learn a lot by that because I live in, like you mentioned, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and there are not like a lot of schools here that teach painting and especially digital painting. So I kind of had to learn by myself when I started out. So I try and do a little bit of that, so maybe someone out there can start learning too. Not that I think I'm good or anything, but I think that...
Stop, you're so good.
It's just a way to give back to the community in a way that helped me so much. And I used to watch a lot of those videos. So it's sort of a way to get back to them. And it's also like, so it's so interesting to look at my own process and see like what kinds of things I think about in like retrospect, right? Because when I'm painting, most of the times I'm like sort of in the zone, right? I'm not really noticing what I'm doing. I'm not sure if that's correct. I'm not really thinking about like mathematically what I'm doing. I'm really just like enjoying it. I'm trying to enjoy it and apply the knowledge, especially the light knowledge and colors. I really enjoy that area. So when I'm watching my own videos and seeing my own process, I get a few inputs into how I could improve it. And that's good for me too, as well. So that's mostly why I do that. And I enjoy it a lot, like hearing what people have to say about my process and things that they want me to draw next. And that's always super, super nice.
Yeah, it's a way to open the communication lines, kind of. But yeah, I love that idea of, you get in the zone and it's like you kind of do it by muscle memory, and then it's like kind of like watching the replay of it to analyze your own process. I love that.
Yeah.
I was watching one of the videos and you mentioned that you actually like you don't succeed a lot of the times. And in fact, you fail many of the times. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
I would say that a lot of my paintings, I start out and I go about like 15 minutes to 20 minutes and I stop because I'm not really focusing. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. So most of the times it fails, and then I have to start again with a new mindset, but remembering the things that I did right. So it's like a test. I do it like 4 times maybe.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes it takes like 4 times or 5 times to get a painting right, and I can really tell at the first like 20 minutes or so if it's going somewhere or not. Most of the times when I start wrong, it's like it goes downhill. It's sort of like that Pareto principle, right?
Right.
That most of the work is done by the beginning, but by the first 20% of the work, you can see like 80% of the results. So if I see that the result's not good, I just start over. So I think that's a good mentality to have, because a lot of the paintings that my worst paintings are the paintings that I started out and they were not like the way I wanted, but I kept going, so they ended up like failing.
Right.
So I try to apply that principle whenever I start a new image. Sometimes like I said, I start 5 times until I get it right.
Now, do you have any advice for people that are listening that like, they're screwing up, but they kind of push through it and just make it complete anyway? Is there like kind of a moment of kind of clarity during the process where you're like, all right, like when do you throw in the towel? What's the moment that you throw in the towel and try again from scratch?
I think it has a lot to do with perspective and structure in painting, right? Specifically. So when I see that I'm rushing it a little bit, when I see that I'm moving my hand too fast and I'm not really thinking about the brush strokes and the decisions, I'm just doing it and it's not what I wanted, I just give up. So for people that are not specifically guided towards painting, I would say about 20% of the work when you're in, if you see that your base is not correct, I would advise you to just go back and start over. A lot of things can be done better if you just remember the mistakes that I did at the first time and then just start again. It's hard because you have that thinking of, oh, I'm gonna lose the work I did, but you have to have courage, right? You have to have courage to understand that starting over, it's probably the best. Just try once and you will probably see that it's gonna work. That starting over it's most of the times is the best way to just have a clear mindset again, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just like kind of clearing the slate. And the important thing that you said there was, remembering what you did right and remembering what you did wrong. So it's not like you just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and don't consider that the time that you spent is like wasted, because it's not. Even if you delete the painting, it's in your head. You remember the thing, so it's not wasted time. It's a time that you spend like knowing what not to do, so you can like do it right when you do it again.
Right, and it's like you had to go through that in order to create the final product anyway, and not to be too hard on yourself.
Yes.
And another thing that I noticed is that for the greater portion of the beginning of your paintings, you don't zoom in at all, which I thought was like pretty interesting. So is that like, what's the idea behind that? Is it just like trying to get the overall image down and then kind of going in and figuring out the details?
Yeah, exactly. It has a lot to do with knowing where the image is going, instead of really just detailing and adding small bits of juiciness, and you really you can get caught in that very easily when you're painting. And I think it translates to a lot of things in life. Like, it's easy to just go into detail and go into very useless things, but things that you enjoy do. It's hard to say that, but I think it's like things that is not going to make a big difference, that are not going to make a big difference, but you just do because you're like sort of like safe. You're going for the safe path, so you just detail and do small changes and go and just do small things. I think it's very important that you go for the big picture and just clear it out at the beginning stages, so you have an idea of sort of like a map. I treat it like a map. I have a general idea of where I'm going, and then I go to a specific place in a painting, and then I detail it. After a while, I try to not zoom in for the first hour at least at my images, maybe 2 hours sometimes when I'm doing a more complex painting, because a lot of the times when I zoom in, I start forgetting about what the image is about, and I start thinking about things like, oh, let's just add some more green here and just make it pop, and then I forget where I'm going, right? I try to be as clear as possible when I'm painting, and I think that's also one of the key points of doing a quick painting, like a painting that looks good in like 30 minutes. It's not about like rushing it or moving fast or fast decisions at all. It's all about really not making that many mistakes and just going for the big picture slowly and having a few different good decisions, right? Not a lot of small bad decisions, right? So I think a lot about that, and it's very hard to see that when you're painting digitally because you have you have the ability to go back, and that's really harmful in a lot of cases when you're painting in Photoshop, because you just feel that you're safe all the time because you can go back, so your decisions are not as important and they don't matter as much, so you just feel safe and you start avoiding big decisions, and then it goes downhill most of the time. So yeah, I think that's why I just go for the big picture and just try to make a few good decisions that I'm happy with, and then I go into detail and just try and polish it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I like the overall message of what you're saying too. It's like, make yourself a little bit uncomfortable to make the big picture correct before you get into the comfortableness of, the smaller decision or the rest of the 80%, the filling in the gaps almost.
Exactly,
once it's all done. Yeah. Mike, I was wondering, could you take us back to your first or one of your first creative moments and tell us that story?
I think one of the first creative moments I had when I was like very small and I was drawing dinosaurs. Like my grandfather, he had like a bar and I was like a little kid. A bar here in Brazil sells, we use that word for places that sell beverages and also food, so it's like a restaurant in a way. And I was very small, probably like 3 years old or 4 maybe, if I remember correctly. And I was like drawing dinosaurs, and he gave me a bunch of paper, and I was just be there with like a bunch of drunk dudes, and I was just drawing dinosaurs and like a small kid, and they would ask for a specific dinosaur, and I would draw it and give it to them, and and it was a lot of fun. It was really weird that I remember that, but it was a lot of fun, and it was I think it was one of the first moments that I realized that I really wanted to just do that and just draw things and give it to people, and just which is basically what I do today, right? But in a different scale. But yeah, I feel that it evolved in a way, but it's still sort of the same, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Did you charge them?
No, not at all.
Free drawings of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So are there any things that initially held you back from being creative, and like resistances, and do you still experience any today?
At the beginning, when I was starting to think about that as a career, it was very hard, especially because there's no such thing as like a Brazilian industry yet, right? Of games and illustration and all of that. There are a lot of people that are starting to get into it, and it's gonna happen soon, but it's not really here yet. So anytime I meet someone new, I have to explain what my job is and what is Photoshop and how I paint in Photoshop, and like go step by step and like explaining why I do this. And there is like a career of people doing that. So it's like, it's always a big story that I have to tell people. So yeah, I face a lot of resistance in that way, but not really in like when I'm trying to create my own pieces and when I'm trying to just paint. I really just enjoy it, and I don't have any big resistances. But when I started out, yeah, especially from like when I was in school, a lot of the other kids, like 14, 15-year-olds, were like, that's probably not going to happen, and you're probably not going to be able to work with that. Why don't you become a lawyer or something? And I was like, I don't want to become a lawyer. And I went out, and that sort of like drove me even like harder to do this. I was like even more motivated to paint. So that sort of helped me. I could have like two big decisions. I could either like give up and start believing them, or the second one, which is what I did, use that to drive me to study more and practice more and just prove them wrong in a way, right? So I think it's all about the way you face these things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's a common thread in this podcast with a lot of people is, you know, the people that surround you, they don't understand. And it not saying it's an easy thing to be an artist or to make money being a creative person at all, but it's still like, it seems like the people that surround you want what's quote best for you, and they are always trying to advise you away from it to get a real job like a lawyer, even, you know, as young as, 14 or 15, just trying to steer you away from that. So, congratulations to you for pushing through it. And like Thanks. You said, using it as a motivation. I think that's really inspiring.
Thanks. Yeah, I think sort of like what we said before about the sort of not having the safety net as much like in the painting is the same about the drive that you have in life to become a creative person or an artist specifically. You have to have a little bit of courage at least to be a different version of yourself every day and trying to get better, because that's really the only way you get better at painting is like not doing the things the way you do.
Right.
Just changing it every day a little bit, like having 20% of difference between you and yourself yesterday, right? So I think it's like a lot of it has to do with courage of being yourself and just trying to improve every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Courage is one of the hardest things to find sometimes and to put it into your work. But we talked a little bit about getting in the zone. And do you ever find that you're not able to get into that zone? And if so, like, how do you get there? If somebody's struggling to kind of, sit down and get to work, how do you suggest that they go about it?
One thing that helps a lot is knowing where your mind is, right? I try to think about two different big areas of my brain. Like one is comfort and one is anxiety, right? I think about those two big areas and I have to really stay exactly in the middle of those. If I get too comfortable when I'm working, I'll probably just be lazy and not make strong decisions, just be like very the thing that we are talking about, just be very slow with my decisions and not really care about if they matter or not. So that's not good. And also there's the other way, which is anxiety, which is like you're trying too much to make it good. You're trying to really focus on every decision and you're really scared of making a decision, and that's also not good. So I try to, whenever I try to get some painting started, I try to really get my mind into the middle of those two big areas. I try to understand that my decisions matter, but I try to have fun at the same time, which is very hard, but you kind of learn it if you do it long enough. You kind of learn to observe yourself and understand where your mind is at this specific moment in the painting, and whatever it is that you do as well. It starts to get easier to manipulate your own mind when you know where it is, right? So I think it's a lot about that. And when you do that, when you find the middle point between those, you get a lot more concentrated. And I think that the zone that we are mentioning it's just being focused, right? It's just being there right now, focusing on what you're doing, right? Really concentrated, right?
Yeah, I think that's like amazing advice, actually. Like, and it translates to, I think, any kind of creative pursuit or anything that you can do is finding that middle ground between comfort and anxiety.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, if you're feeling totally like stoked and comfortable and not fearful at all, you're probably doing something wrong. And at the same time, if you're like a nervous wreck about what you're putting out there, it's like that's wrong too. So it's trying to find that balance of always kind of pushing yourself.
Because a lot of people, when you're too anxious, they advise you, just relax, just be very relaxed, and then you get very relaxed and you don't get it done as well, so you get back to anxiety. And the other way as well, when you're too comfortable, people say, you have to practice, you have to study, you have to be focused, and then you get too anxious. So it's like, I don't think the things about one point or the other is about exactly what we are talking about. It's like a middle ground. It's just a specific balance between those.
Yeah, and like you said, the more you do it, the easier it is to kind of manipulate that, and the easier it is to kind of find that middle zone.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a formula for balancing your time with all the different commission work and as well as your kind of passion projects?
Not really a formula, but I try to always have like a schedule of what my day is gonna be like. So every day I always like to do it in paper. So I grab a piece of paper and just write it down what I'm going to do that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I just do it. It's so much easier because I'm not a person that is able to just organize myself using a computer, so have like Google calendars and stuff like
right.
that. It's not for me. I really like a simple piece of paper and just write it down the times and what I'm going to do, and then I always put time to do something for myself, no matter how many things I have to do in the day. I always like to have like a 1 or 2 hours a day at least to do something for myself, some sketch generally, or just watching a movie while I sketch on my sketchbook some of the scenes, or just digital sketching, or just trying to not have the pressure of a client and draw a little bit. It's very important because that's when you just discover a lot of new things that you would not experiment doing client work, and they incorporate into client work later. So it's really helpful in a way because you're not really having someone to tell you what to do, and you're just experimenting a lot of different things. So I think the key is to always force yourself to have a daily sketch or a daily thing that you do for yourself, even if it's like super hard. If you have no time for it, I think it's very important to have at least like 1 hour to do it. So I try and do it in the mornings because I think it's easier for me. I'm a morning person. I wake up very early, like at least for a freelancer. I wake up at like 7 and I start doing my work, and then I start sketching for myself a little bit, and then I started doing my work. And it's like a lot of fun. I didn't need to wake up early at all. I could be one of those people that like don't sleep at all, and then at night, and then sleep in the day, and get a very wrong schedule. But I really enjoy doing things in the morning, especially like 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. is like the sweet spot. I think it's awesome.
That's awesome. So whenever you're doing those, the drawing for yourself, and I agree that it's really important to, carve out a little bit of time every day to just for your own sanity. But when you're doing those drawings, do you kind of let yourself off the hook from that middle ground we're talking about? Do you kind of allow yourself to be a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, I think a little bit, like I said before, about like 20% of experimentation and 80% of like doing the things because it's always about, it's like going to the gym or doing some exercise. It's always about lifting a little bit more than you can take before the day before.
I love that.
And it's like, it really helps because it doesn't make you fearful. It doesn't make you like scared because you're just doing a little bit harder and you think you can do it because it's just a little bit harder. But at the same time, it's not like totally comfort zone. So I think like having that mentality, it's very important. Of course, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Some of the days that I do sketching is like awful, and I hate everything. But some of the days is like better. So yeah, I think it's also understanding that some of the days are not gonna be good at all.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, and I'm also a big proponent of just like writing it down on paper too, because I think in this day and age, we're just kind of glued and tied down to our phones and our Google calendars and doing that. But like having that piece of paper where you write down your schedule, it's like your own little personal, like your personal itinerary almost of things that you need to do, and it's just so kind of therapeutic to kind of check things off too. Exactly. Old school.
Exactly. I think that I was going to say that it's like just checking things off when you do something in paper, just grabbing a pen and just it's so good.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Mike, this has been very inspiring and very interesting interview, and but it's time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today and give them your best words of advice and really push them to pursue their creative passions.
All right, let's do this. I think that whenever you're doing something creative and whenever trying to innovate, it's very important that you don't get too focused on looking on someone else's work too much. And we do that a lot, especially in painting. Nowadays, it's a lot about looking at other people doing stuff and then trying to make it the same. But I feel that your best moments are when you're just yourself, you and your computer, you and whatever is the tool that you use. And you're just having the courage to really do what you want and remember those moments when you were a kid, right? That I told you before.
With dinosaurs.
Yeah, dinosaurs. And just remember that and remember why you're doing this creative job that you're doing. Don't be scared to experiment a little bit and just get out of your comfort zone, but not too much, a little bit. And just really trying to have time for yourself to doing it every day, understanding that you're not going to be the best every day, and understand that it's a long, long path. It takes a lot of time, especially for a painter to become a good painter. So a lot of things that I had in the beginning were like, I was very anxious about the future. I wanted it to happen right away. But the more it passed, the more I understood that I had to really just enjoy every day and just do one painting at a time, just focus on being the best I can be, like right now. And I think that's the best advice that I can give someone is just try to be the best you can be, like today, and then do it again tomorrow, and just do it every day, and you realize that you walked like a long path, right? I think that's
absolutely.
It.
Yeah, it's focusing on just what you can get done today.
Yeah.
I think that's like the best advice you can give, and also trying to enjoy it, but not enjoy it too much to also push yourself to not be too comfortable with it. Yeah. I think it's like the best advice that you can give.
Thanks.
Hey, Mike, man, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I really appreciate it, and thanks for giving us that push.
Thank you for inviting me. Thanks, everyone. Good luck.
All right, and you can find Mike. We'll have all the links to his Instagram, which is Mike Azevedo Art, and everything else on our show notes page at yourcreativepush.com/Mike Azevedo. That's AZEVEDO. Mike, thanks again, brother.
Thanks.
Wow, are you kidding me with that interview? Like, so inspiring. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming on the show. This was like one of the funnest interviews to edit. And as I was doing the show notes and stuff, I was like, what should I title this episode? And that was the hardest part of this episode, was trying to find a good title, because there's so many key points in this episode. Some of the titles I came up with were, start over, but remember your mistakes. Another one was be brave and make big decisions. Another one was find the middle ground between comfort and anxiety. And then finally, be the best you can be today and then do it again tomorrow. I mean, it was just so inspiring. And there's a lot I actually wanted to bring up. Maybe the better bet is for you to go back and listen to it again. But just real quickly, I just want to remind you that it's okay to start over sometimes. If you're 20% into your project, into your whatever it is that you're doing, feel free to start over, and it is not a waste of time, like Mike was saying, to start over, as long as you remember what went well and what didn't go so well, and what the reason why you're starting over is. And I love that idea of, not zooming in as you're starting a project. And that's not just talking about working in Photoshop and not zooming in, but just having this overall idea as you start a project of what you want the basis of it to be, what you want the overall theme to be, and making those big decisions early on, being brave and being courageous to kind of make those decisions before you get into the nitty-gritty, get into the details that you're really good at doing, that you love doing because you're so good at doing. No, make those difficult decisions first and then get into the nitty-gritty. And I also just loved Mike's answer when I asked him how to get in the zone if you're having trouble getting in the zone. And I think it's really sound advice to try to find that middle ground. between comfort and anxiety. If you find yourself doing things that you're just totally comfortable doing, that you're really good at, like we were talking about before, you're probably not progressing in your overall skill set, in your overall abilities. You need to feel a little bit scared, a little bit anxious about what you're doing, because if you feel that way, that means you are making those big decisions. That means you are trying to progress and putting yourself in a position where you can learn new things and put yourself out there more. I think it's really important to try to find that fine line. It's a tough middle ground to find sometimes, but like Mike said, the more time you put in, the easier it is to find that middle ground, the easier it is to find that zone, so you can get in that zone and not have to think too much about what you're doing. And also going along with that, just one more thing for the visual artists, for the painters, for anybody that's kind of doing this process that you can kind of document, like we were talking about with Mike's YouTube time-lapse videos. Check those out, but also maybe think about doing it for yourself, and not necessarily to show anybody else, but almost like coaches do for football games, that coaches do for any kind of sport. It's watching that tape and analyzing your opponent, figuring out what makes them tick. But the thing is, in this case, the opponent is you. You're figuring out what makes you tick, what you're good at, what you're bad at, where you go wrong, where you go right. It could be an interesting experience to check out. It could be a really fun thing to experience too, and maybe even, plop that up on YouTube and just put up another way for you to kind of communicate with other artists, with other creative people, by sharing your thoughts as you maybe even on the fly are analyzing your own art and where you're going and what you were thinking about. It could not only help yourself, but you could help a lot of other people too. And you don't have to plop it on YouTube, but it might be really interesting at least once to try that out. I think it could be pretty easy to do. Phones are great these days, and editing software is very easy to use. So I don't know, try it out. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that too. So you can head to yourcreativepush.com/Mike Azavito if you want to comment, or yourcreativepush.com/142, or as always, you can hit me up on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever you want, if you'd like to talk about that or share your results. I'd love to hear your thoughts. A lot of great stuff today. Hopefully you were inspired. I know you were inspired to go and get your work done. So please go and get it done. And we will see you on Friday if you need the push again. I love you all. Get some awesome work done, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.